faithful sausage biscuit from South Lake. Let's see what kind of pizza they got for lunch. That'll work.
I mean, that's your meat sandwich.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'll just put this back.
So this is my buddy Captain Ty Hibbs. He is really just an amazing angler, die hard, fishes as much as he can. He fishes for a living with his clients. We wanted to come fishing today, get it in before the hurricane. How do you see it playing out at this point? I know we'll have to adapt as things go on, but what's your plan right now?
You know, as far as today goes, it's gonna be windy. You can see that it's a Monday, and I bet you we watched 25 boats launch today. So, you know, when that happens in Louisiana,
something's biting. Yeah, trout, something's going on.
Redfish, something that can be eaten is getting caught.
Louisiana's most popular inshore species fish, we call it a speckled trout. I think it's also called, what, a spotted sea trout? That's kind of what we're gonna try and hit this morning, get a few trout. But we're just gonna play it as it comes.
Yeah,
you know,
take whatever.
Ty's handle that he uses is called whatever bites, and that's the attitude we're just gonna have to take today.
How I've been since I was a kid. You know, me and my buddy Sean, we kind of grew up fishing together, and it was always we went fishing and for whatever bites. You know, so
yeah, so
whatever we could catch that day.
All right, well, we're going to find out what they're doing, where they are, and we're gonna have a good day. Follow along.
That was
that was crazy. I wouldn't mind that when I'm duck hunting.
He definitely came to look at us.
Oh, either us or he's looking for somebody on the marsh somewhere. I don't know. He's like running the bank.
I mean, he came all the way to us, and then
that was weird.
That was weird, right?
It was loud. I'm surprised I didn't feel the wind from the props as much. I mean, I bet you he wasn't 80 yards above us. I don't think it'd be good for redfish, though. If we were sight fishing, that definitely would have spooked them. I mean, it's October. These fish they're in the marsh chasing the shrimp. Getting first couple cold fronts and all. So what I like to do right before it gets really cold, especially this time of year, is throw topwaters all through the marsh. And it may look kind of wild that we're just kind of fishing pretty much like areas that we normally be sight fishing redfish in. But these trout are holding to the grass, kind of like the redfish do too, until it gets really cold. Then they drives them deep and all, you know, and really drives the shrimp out of the marsh. But as long as the water's high like this and grass, we're just kind of looking for the same kind of things we're looking for redfish in the summer. And the trout are kind of the same way. They're feeding on everything coming through the grass. But I just like throwing topwaters. You know, it's hard to beat a topwater bite. It just draws, you know, that reaction bite. And you can cover a lot of water with it. And I mean, if somebody doesn't like a topwater blow up, they probably don't need to be fishing. Old green trout right there. They never complain about them. Storm surges this summer are the saltiest we've been in years, probably 6 or 7 years. And the bass have been like bees lately because everything's been so fresh. You know, we got violet locks, water coming out of there. We've had the spillway open numerous times, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it can be for our trout fishing, it can be for some oyster guys and all, but us fishermen, you know, if you just adapt, bass are plenty fun to catch. I like eating the smaller ones. I let all the bigger ones go, but I love catching them. I mean, and they're fun as can be. Yeah, I'd love to be catching 6-pound trout in here like we did when I was a kid. But you just gotta adapt. There's always a fish to catch down here in Louisiana, no matter what the hell happens. Mignon size. Just jigging a jig head through here. You know, we're kind of grinding. Hadn't been all that great this morning at all. Had lack of tide, high water, and I don't know what else it is, but we've been struggling. But you put on a jig head, just cover some water, you eventually get bit. And he will taste delicious. Just jigging, and I kind of thought for a second I might have been snagged on a stump. The only problem was there's no stumps around here. So then it barely moved a little. Figured maybe I snagged a gar. But I'm pretty confident this is like some kind of 30-pound drum. This one's gonna be a while,
So Ty's got a big, huge black drum that he's fighting. And the crazy thing is, it's gonna be a really cool fish and it's gonna be a good catch, but we can't eat it. It's too big. They're not, you know, once they get that big, they're not good to eat. I'll probably take a nap in the meantime. Like, he's gonna be there a while, so whatever bites, huh, bro?
Yeah. This is just my little baby jigging rod, about 6 foot 2 inches, 15-pound fluorocarbon, and an old Shimano core. You know, stuff I use for trout, small bass, maybe even small redfish, but not 30-pound drums. Right over 30.
Oh man, how was that?
Will wear you out a little bit, especially on a small rod, but shoot, the fish that big will wear you out on any rod. I don't care what you got. That's a drum for you. That's why we call them a big nasty. Big slimy slime ball. They sit on the bottom. That drum's probably been sitting in that one spot for weeks, months. He might live there, we don't know. But they don't move much. They can't see too well. And they eat whatever the hell comes by them. So they're always a fun fish to catch. Even more fun when it's a slower day.
So we do eat black drum, we do keep them to eat, but normally they're within 16 to 22 inch range. They're a little bit tough to clean, not too bad, but one that big, he's gonna have parasites because they live on the bottom,
yeah,
so they attract parasites.
Worms and all.
Yeah. So not something we want to eat, certainly something that's fun to catch, put back, let them live another day. We're gonna keep fishing for a few more eater fish. It's really been a tough day. I mean, there's no other way to chop it up.
Yeah. It's been a high water, kind of warmer day. We don't know if the pressure's got them. The tide hasn't done anything. You know, when the water's high like this. We got a storm in the Gulf. It'll hinder that falling tide a lot. Whenever that surge starts coming up, and all you can do is keep on casting, man. Keep on casting, and whatever bites the hook, you just be grateful for it, pretty much. But what we're doing is a lot of these fish this time of year, and this is pretty much a constant thing through the spring and the fall. I mean, this is probably the #1 go-to thing in all of Louisiana as far as catching trout for anybody to do. So you got a bayou up here, and it's making a tide line. You see that little slick line out there, and it's making that tide line, and it kind of just sits, and it's like a highway for bait. And not really a highway for bait as much a highway for fish, because the bait get trapped in it. It's more tide in one area and not enough in the other. So the bait get trapped in it, and then if you follow the bait, then you catch the fish. Let's see if it's a speck. Damn. Ain't gonna complain about that one right there. Beautiful marsh trout right there. You don't see them like that in the marsh too often. That is one thing what we love to see right there. And that's why you do not go anywhere in this state without a damn popping cork. That is the ticket. So popping cork, it's come a long way since, you know, far beyond our time. But it's come from just, you know, just chunks of cork on there, actual like cork you see on a butt of your rods to foam like this. And this is actually a 4 horseman. You see it's been battered and abused by bull reds out on the beaches on the west side. But anything that makes noise like that and has some rattle, some of them have beats, some of them have these, you know, deeper sounds. I don't think it matters as much, whatever you like throwing. I like giving this to clients because they could sling in a mile. But man, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it makes the right shrimp popping noise or what, but there are days I've had where we will not get a bite and I put a popping cork on and you get plenty bites.
So we call these affectionately a green trout down here. Most folks know them as a largemouth bass. And I'll be honest, we don't give them the same amount of respect that they get in other places. One reason is they really don't, on average, grow to a large size, so we kind of view them as more of an eating fish, and that's what we're gonna do with these. This one here is just good, perfect little eating size. We'll get a nice fillet off of him. Yeah, that's our green trout. That's what we call them.
Is that a white trout? Look at that. Pulling the cork down so we won't complain, but not a bad white trout either. Jumped on.
Now,
it's amazing.
on white trout, there's no size limit, right?
Nope, no size limit on these guys. So now, a lot of people, you know, they won't even keep them. They say they don't taste as good and all. I mean, I think they taste fine. Their meat, I feel like, does not really spoil, but get a little mushy if you don't keep them iced down good. But if you're planning on eating something the same day or even a couple of days later, you know, as long as you don't freeze them, these things are hard to beat, and you can catch a lot of them when they're around.
So this is my little breakfast lunch, the deer meat sandwich. I made some venison stock over the weekend. I boiled some, you know, the bones from a deer that I cleaned. And when I pulled it out from the pot after the boiling, when I pulled it out, I noticed, I was like, dang, there's a lot of meat left on the bones. So I sat there, picked it, pulled it off. But I didn't put any salt or any type of seasoning in the pot when I boiled the stock. So you know, the meat had absolutely no flavor. So I got up early this morning, fried it up in a pan with a little bit of Cajun seasoning on it and some salt. Throw on a sandwich with some cheese, and that's our breakfast lunch, a deer meat sandwich. That was good. It's tender. That was good. There he is, speckled trout. That's South Louisiana's favorite fish. Really just fishing and drifting along this bayou, and more or less we were pretty much done for the day, and throwing out casting, and we wound up catching a few, and we're catching them as this water kind of runs down this bayou, and it runs along the bank, and it seems like the fish are just staging up along the bank, and we're just catching a few here and there, you know, nothing crazy, but it seems like, you know, every you know, 5 to 10 casts or so we catch another one, and we put it in the box, and really just rounding out the day much better than we started it. And that's kind of what he expected. You know, he had a report that yesterday afternoon was good, and it seems like the tide tends to fall a little bit better in the afternoon, so that's kind of what we figured. And here we are putting just a few more together.
Definitely key. Yeah, you know, we've been kind of grinding all day, just trying to catch whatever we can, you know, whatever bites the hook. And we love the falling tide this time of year. It gets all the shrimp out of the marsh, and with all the storm surge and high water, the falling tide has been just non-existent. And it just started trickling out, and we're kind of making our way back to the launch. And we're not whacking them by any means, but we're catching, you know, a few here, a few there. That's all we're looking for. We don't have to catch 100 of them. Enough to make a meal for tonight and have a little fun.
right, well, that's a wrap. You know, really not much to say. It wasn't ever real good.
No,
you know, we didn't catch a lot of fish, but we caught something. I mean, what do you think? What happened?
You know, I just told Jared when we pulled back up, I looked at the dock, and I kind of noticed it in the marsh too, the water never really moved. But we're sitting right here at the dock, and it is literally the same exact water level as when we left. I mean, no tide moving at all today. It was supposed to rise just a little bit and then come in and then fall out pretty hard around noon, which it started to fall a little bit, but still nothing crazy like a normal October falling tide is. But we managed to scratch a couple, and you know, we want those big falling tides to get the shrimp moving and get the trout really, you know, feeding hard. But you know, there's no complaints here. We caught a couple, enough to make a little something to eat tonight, and that's all we're really worried about. You know, it's fun to catch them, and then you get a couple to eat. It's a bonus.
What Ty is saying is that the tides didn't fluctuate much today, and I would say any type of coastal fishing, you're dependent on that tidal movement, because that's when fish really feed the most, and that's when you had the best chance of catching them. So it didn't happen at all today. So that's why, you know, we struggled. You know, like you said, it was a grind. It was a grind to catch what we caught here. So we're gonna pick the boat up, get on back to the house. I'm gonna show y'all some cooking, so stay with us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna cook some Jamaican jerk trout. I scaled my trout and kept them whole, gutted them, and we're gonna cook them whole. I got the idea from this from actually frying plantains. I fried some plantains a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, this is good, but what wild game would go well with this? And of course, like pulled pork tacos, taking a wild pig and cooking it down into tacos, but I was like, what else can I do? So I started thinking, and then the connection of the Caribbean stuff came with the Jamaican. I was like, oh, you know, jerk chicken, let's do jerk fish, let's try it out. As with most of the stuff I cook, I'm always trying to figure out the quickest way to do it. Once again, that's because I have young children. You get home in the evening, it's time to hurry up, cook, get dinner, do baths. So I don't have time to make everything from scratch the way I might like to and the way some people might like to. So I had to come up with a way to do it quickly to get it done and get everybody fed in time. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna take and just score our fish. As always, we go with our kosher salt. Get that on there nice and good. Get some down in the body cavity on the other side. Some garlic powder. Down in the body. And here. Okay. And a little bit of Cajun seasoning. It's always fun when you tie in different things together. You know, the Jamaican jerk and Cajun seasoning. Pretty interesting. So then we just take a Ziploc, fish. This is KC Masterpiece Caribbean Jerk 30-minute marinade. Pour it in the Ziploc. And you can kind of gauge how much you want to do, you know. I just kind of want to get it nice and covered. I don't want it to be swimming in it. All right, so I'm gonna go put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes. I'm gonna let the grill get nice and hot. I'm going to fry my plantains and I'm gonna make my rice. All right, the grill's on, it's fired up. One thing I do a lot of times is I use my cast iron pan on the grill. The reason I'm doing it for this dish is that fish has a tendency to want to break up and stick to the grill grates. So by putting it in the pan, at least if it does stick, I'm assuring that everything stays in there, doesn't fall down in the grill. And there's one other reason I'm doing that, and I'll show you here when it's done. All right, my rice is cooked, my plantains are fried, and my grill is hot. So it's time to get these fish on the pan. And we're just gonna let those go for a little while, keep a close eye on them. The main thing is you really just don't want it to stick, so check it every once in a while, move it around a little bit, make sure it doesn't get stuck. When they look about ready, just flip them over. All right, nice crispiness going on. All right, these are looking pretty much ready. I'm gonna take them off, let them cool off for a second. Turn my fire off. Here's the reason I wanted to use the pan. We're gonna go ahead and deglaze it with some Jamaican red stripe beer. Look at that. I'm feeling irie. Irie. Alright, so the rice I did is coconut rice. That's where you take coconut milk and add it as you make your rice. So in other words, if you have 2 cups of water and 1 cup of rice normally, you'd sub 1 cup of water for 1 cup of coconut milk. So 1 cup of coconut milk, 1 cup of water, and then 1 cup of rice. Take this bad boy here, lay him on top of the coconut rice. Alright, I want to get some of this sauce from our Red Stripe beer. Put that on top. Alright, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mango salsa on top of this. I just took a store-bought salsa, bought some frozen mangoes, chopped them up, and mixed it together. Once again, saving time. If you want to make it from scratch, homemade, it's always better that way, but if you're trying to save time, this is a quick way to do it. Alright, so I just take some of that, get that on top of that fish. And that's it right there, Jamaican jerk trout with fried plantains and coconut rice. Thanks for taking the time to watch Outside the Levees. Please subscribe and follow along.